I've been on a quest for a little while now to find the perfect gaming, streaming, all-in-one phone, specifically though based on streaming and content creation. This is a problem for a lot of phones due to the various implementations of USB connectivity, the specs involved to actually do the video encoding while gaming in very intensive games, and the support for programs to actually support things like capture cards or whatever for streaming other things. I've reviewed a couple gaming phones now with this in mind, most recently the Asus ROG Phone 2. It had some limitations and I'm really stoked for, I guess, the Gen 3 of that phone, should they improve those features in a future in a future release of the phone, as they weren't going to do it in software updates. Today we're taking a look at the Red Magic 5G. This is technically not a review, as they have sponsored the channel during the month of April for some description stuff that you all saw on the trailer and things like that, but I am going to be covering this quite critically for streaming purposes. This was sent for review by Nubia. I do want to note something at the start though. I am going to be very critical of a few specific things that I think are really bad about this phone. But overall, performance-wise for gaming, especially if you're just shopping for a gaming phone or wanting to do gaming with light screen recording and things like that, it is still great for those purposes. But there are a couple very specific things that bother me so much that it's going to sound like I hate the phone when I'm talking about those things. That bothers a lot of people. I just hope you can see through, which part matters to you, but I just wanted to note that. We're going to get in here after a word from this video sponsor.
Do you want to be the next pro streamer, but your stream layout looks like this? Well, change that today with Nerd or Die and their new stream layouts. They're beautiful, they look great, and they make them super easy to set up so that you can go from looking like this, which most of my streams in my entire career have looked like, to actually looking like you know what you're doing, even if you don't. Head over to evilsfox.gg/nerdordie to learn more, and we got a coupon so you don't have to keep hunting for a way to afford your next layout. For the first 50 of you to use the coupon code VOX50, you will get 50% off your total order at Nerd or Die, evilsfox.gg/nerdordie. It's only good for 50 uses, but save yourself a little bit of money and upgrade your stream today. Again, that's coupon code VOX50.
So this is the Red Magic 5G, their latest gaming phone. They do already have a new model of this coming out, but whatever. My specific model has 128 gigs of storage, 8 gigabytes of RAM, and a 2340 by 1080 screen, which is about a 2.2 to 1 aspect ratio. Pretty nice. It's a beautiful screen. Colors aren't necessarily super accurate, but it runs at 144 hertz or 90 hertz or 60 hertz, depending on what you want it set to. You can't really do 120 hertz without some hacky extra tools, and then it doesn't even show that it's running at 120 hertz. But I just left it on 144 hertz for the most part, even though you're not really going to find any games that run at that. And we'll talk about that in a moment. So first, let's talk about the actual gaming experience before we get into the streaming stuff, because that's where the meat and potatoes of this review is. This phone has a really fast processor, a really fast GPU on it. It's very well optimized for gaming, and it has enough RAM that you can have a bunch of games open at once. And they have their little game space switch, which was on the Red Magic Mars that I reviewed a couple years back, where you switch into the game space mode and you have a full game launcher. It has this goofy little animation that plays. You have a full game launcher. You have the ability to enhance your games by prioritizing CPU or GPU power based on what you think your game will use. There's no tool in this to actually see what your usage is, so really you're just kind of guessing. Like, you have no way of knowing whether your game is CPU or GPU bottlenecked on your phone. There's no tool for that built in. There's none that don't usually require root. The phone doesn't present it to you, so really I just enable the super turbo mode, which eats up battery life but overclocks the processor and graphics card. It does have a fan in it, so you'll see some grills next to each side here. The fan is mostly quiet, but it does have this really annoying high-pitched whine to it, to where if you put it up to your ears, you can definitely hear it. And as you play for extended sessions, you'll start to hear it more if you're just, if you don't have sound or you're just using your ears or whatever. It's not awful. Like, it's better than every laptop fan that I've ever used, but it is present there, and that does mean the phone is not waterproof, because this is just a giant gaping opening to the side of the phone. Of course, then you have other tools such as the shoulder triggers, which to me, and why I keep talking about these gaming phones, this is the only way I will play shooters on my phone. Now, to a lot of people, they're just like, oh, don't play shooters on your phone. But I really, really enjoy games like Call of Duty Mobile and PUBG Mobile. Call of Duty Mobile has that classic arcade Call of Duty experience that you don't get anymore. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019 is not the same game as Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2007. I prefer the gunplay and the feel of 2007. Call of Duty Mobile gives me that. And so I enjoy these games, although I would rather play them, Call of Duty Online on the computer, not available in the States. So the only way that I will play these without my hands getting incredibly cramped and me feeling like I'm way worse than I normally am is with the triggers. These triggers are phenomenal. Now the phone is a little wider than usual, so they're kind of at an awkward spot to aim, but it's still fine. Those triggers are great. You have menu options to completely customize where they go, because they basically just simulate screen presses. So you put the little icons over top of the aim down sights and the trigger buttons, and you're good to go for the most part. I rarely have any issues with it. Every once in a while, if I hit them both at the same time, sometimes the input won't press to the game, so either I'll just be aiming down sight and not, shooting isn't working, or I'll be shooting and the aim down sight never triggers, but that's not super common, and like I said, I won't play a lot of games without these features, so that's pretty cool. On top of that, you also have an aiming assist, which is of questionable legitimacy, because it's like those little dots you hang in front of your screen for TVs and monitors. It literally puts a dot in the center of your screen, so you don't have to rely on crosshairs as much to aim. Since every game pretty much implements spread and bullet drop off and recoil these days, it's not incredibly useful, but some people still use it. And then there's some macro tools, but I've never really messed with those, and I can't really, attend to them. You do have control over the fan. You have the ability to swap your screen refresh rate, like I said, from 60, 90 to 144 hertz. You have 4D shock, which is an extra vibrational mode in the game to help give you more feedback like a controller when you're in a shooter, depending on the game that's supported. It's not always supported in some of these. And then you have super snap, which is the ability to take just really nice screenshots and things like that. There's also a highlights feature built into this for screen recording, which we'll talk about in a moment. I've never gotten it to work. You also have the ability to lock the touchscreen so that it doesn't go off, but you're not touching it if you're using a controller. So the gaming experience is great. I no longer have access to the software I used to benchmark frame rates or anything like that, and honestly it's kind of pointless because most of the games cap out at 60 FPS, but running every game that I've possibly thrown at it at max resolution, graphics settings, and frame rate options, it runs, I've never noticed any jittery frames or anything like that. Runs buttery smooth, as you would expect. Like, these games can be tough to run for a phone, but once you get to a certain class of phone, they all pretty much run maxed out with no problems, and that has been the case here with Call of Duty, PUBG. What else have I played? Cyber Hunter, which is another battle royale kind of game. Dragon Ball Legends, Modern Combat Versus, Modern Combat 5, Raid Shadow Legends looks beautiful maxed out on this screen. Not a sponsor spot. Warface, like most of these games, I've run completely maxed out without any issues whatsoever. It's been great. Gaming experience overall is great. If you're looking for a gaming phone, you can stop watching here because that's really all you need to know. But when it comes to content creation and other ways to game and stuff, I start having some issues. And those issues start with the accessories, actually. The accessory ecosystem just kind of sucks, which is weird because I complained about the ROG Phone 2's accessory ecosystem being almost there, but missing some crucial things for me. And this one is a step backwards from that. You have similar accessories. So I have 3 things here, 2 of which go together. I have the Joy-Con, aka the controller side stick, which comes with the case to slide it on. Good to go. It's supposed to be reversible. However, they only ever show it on one side, not both at once, and from what I can tell, you can't actually use both at once. So unlike the Razer phone, which I would still love to try the newer one with all those accessories, or the Asus ROG phone where you have basically a full Switch-like controller on both sides, you seem to only get one of these. And when you have it on the left side, you get these nice, bigger, clicky triggers, and when you flip it on the other side, you only have tiny little buttons. And so that's annoying. And frankly, I could not get it to work for right side controls pretty much at all. Felt fine for aiming, but it felt a little, or for moving, but it felt a little goofy moving with the joystick and then still aiming and shooting with the phone, because that was the part that I wanted to stop using it for. Moving with my thumb on the phone is fine. It does come with this case, which helps with gripping a lot. This is a super slippery phone. I'm going to complain about this a lot in a minute. I had actually bought a case from Nubia for this phone because of how slippery it is. That case has still not arrived. I ordered that at the start of May. I ended up sending them an email before it had even shipped or anything like that, right after I bought it, because I got this in and realized, oh hey, this comes with a case. I no longer need a case. Can I cancel my order? Never heard back, and instead it shipped, and it's been 2 months and I still haven't gotten it. It's in my general tri-state area, but it's been floating around for a while. It'll still probably be a couple weeks before I get it. Obviously, COVID and things like that have delayed shipping and caused problems with that, and I generally tell people not to complain too much about it, but this has been incredibly long for something like that, and I've never had a package be this delayed due to COVID. Like, I've had things shipped from China and Japan and things like that without any of these issues, but whatever. That's an issue. But you do need a case for it in most cases, because this is the most slippery phone I have ever used in my entire life. It is awful. It has a completely smooth glass back, which slips out of your hands. When you're using it to try to shoot, it does slip a little bit. Thankfully, the speaker grills and the ports on the side actually make that easier to grip while you're gaming. But overall, it is incredibly slippery to the extent that I have set it on completely flat surfaces that should not have any gravity acting on it whatsoever, and it still slides off of them because it's so freaking slippery. I don't know why you would ever build a single phone that is this slippery, and it's a trend that's coming up more and more in phones, but this is just asking people to break it. So you need a case or a grip of some sort on it. The next problem I ran into with that, however, is I also bought another accessory, which is the docking station. The docking station is designed to perfectly fit the phone naked. Not even their own little Joy-Con case will fit in here with the phone and it actually go in here. So that means the case that I also bought won't work with the docking station. No one thought this through. Incredibly dumb. Not only that, I was hoping the docking station would let me get video out, because that was something that the ROG Phone 2 had. So if I want to play with a controller, or I want an easier ability to get video out, because currently the video out comes out through USB Type-C, which is 3.0, does carry a video signal. Huge thumbs up. I keep complaining about all these phones that don't do that. I am super glad they did this. Very important for a gaming phone, IMO. But especially due to how wide it is, having that USB port sticking out in between your fingers and still trying to hit this trigger is basically impossible. It is incredibly frustrating. And so I was really hoping I could just pop it in a dock and either hold it and have the cables coming out the back, or just use a controller and have clean video out that way. However, this USB port on the back is only for power. Only for power. Just gives power to the phone. And so I can use video out of this port and still have it sitting on the dock, but then I can only use one of the USB ports at a time. So either I have video out here or it charges. Once I unplug one, the other activates. So that was a dud. It also has an Ethernet port if you're worried about your Wi-Fi that badly. All mobile games are optimized for crappy internet connections, so I've never felt compelled to use that, but it's an option. And then there's an extra audio jack on there as well, which is nice if you want to set it up as basically a home console, I guess. Not a bad idea. Otherwise, the docking station works fine for that purpose, but for streaming, for content creation, for recording, that was a big bummer. So, video output, not an option on the dock. Video output out of the phone is an option. USB-C to HDMI adapter, I tried a few different ones, they all worked fine. It kind of adapts to what is supported by your capture device or your screen. So I was using that to test many of the cheaper capture cards I've been reviewing lately. Those are, usually only accept 1080p signals. It downscales to that and just letterboxes the wider aspect ratio. Works fine. However, I was disappointed that Ultrawide didn't work. Plug it into a 4K capture card, you get a nice beautiful 4K 60 signal as well. So then if you do want to capture video into OBS or a live stream, or just generally get lossless video out of this device with USB-C, like I mentioned before, you are completely stuck trying to hit that trigger and tearing your finger up with that cable running through it and possibly damaging the port, which is really disappointing. So then the next step for content creation is relying on internal apps for screen recording. They have an app for such a thing, and I was so impressed with Asus's that I was hoping to get the same results here, as it is considered a system app since they built it into their launcher, and thus they have access to the game sound. Just like Asus's phone, you only have access to either the game sound or the microphone sound. You cannot use both at once, and the built-in screen recorder for this only has 480p and 720p as quality options, and the quality isn't amazing. So some of the gameplay you will have seen here will be of varying quality depending on how I captured it, because the screen recorder built into it is not super great. You do of course have AZ screen recorder as an option as well if you want to record it that way. Unfortunately, I have yet to find a NDI option that will output NDI video over from your screen capture of your smartphone. There was an option at one point for your camera, but not your screen capture. But the built-in option, while still getting system sound, and that's a big step up over something like AZ screen recorder, quality is not great at all. Of course, you can stream from this phone using Streamlabs. You can use Prism Live Studio if you like. You can use any plethora of options, and performance generally holds up, especially if you turn on some of the turbo modes and stuff. Like, performance on this phone is phenomenal. It will handle streaming and recording at the same time, which is lovely. You can start yourself the next mobile streaming career, which is pretty cool. I did have some issues getting mobile apps to connect to Trovo Live at the moment, and a lot of people have been using that for mobile game streaming, especially since that's what, you know, Tencent uses for their apps and all of that. I'll have an update video on that once I get that worked out. But that part performs really, really well. The problem with the software side is their launcher that they forced onto this is abysmal. Like, it was the main thing, that and the slipperiness without a case, that kept me from switching to it. Like, the whole time before I got this phone in my Discord, evosvox.gg/discord, I'd been hyping up getting this phone so I could upgrade phones from my Pixel 2 XL, have a phone that I can game with regularly, has stellar battery life, by the way, and has an 8K camera, which is actually pretty good. We'll talk about that in a moment. But the launcher on it is so bad, and the screen scaling ratio is so bad that I don't want to use it. Now, you can download and launch another launcher, such as Nova Launcher, but you can't change the default launcher. I tried every different way that you could find on this phone, and even though the UI may tell you that you changed it, the default home option from Nubia to Nova Launcher, it will always launch and boot with the Nubia Launcher, and the second you hit the home button or the back button, it goes back to it. I have looked, and everyone on the forums and things like that have said that there's no way to do it without this weird rooting way with Blackmagic 5G custom ROM thing that doesn't even seem to be a permanent install. I gave up. We tried disabling the launcher, nothing didn't give me the option. We tried force stopping it. We tried doing everything short of rooting it, and it just didn't work. That's incredibly disappointing. You should never do that to a phone. You should let me run my own launcher. What was weird about it was I had to go back and find it to remember the previous phone from them I reviewed, the Red Magic Mars, did not have this issue. It basically looked like stock Android and was wonderful. So I don't know why they did it to their new one when they already did it right here. Do the same thing here. This is one of those things, like I said, it will make it sound like I hate the phone because that launcher is abysmal. But it's one point in a list of many points. So let's talk about the cameras. It has 3 cameras, a 2 megapixel macro lens. 2 megapixels is not much to get a great picture out of. I don't even participate in the megapixel war because the next one has a huge megapixel count, but 2 is not great for 2020. The main camera is a 64 megapixel Sony sensor main camera with a 1/1.7 inch camera sensor, and then there's an ultra wide sensor that is 8 megapixels. This feels like just a weird array of like drastically different quality cameras. It's kind of weird. The camera quality is all right. Obviously, most of smartphone camera stuff these days, like quality-wise, comes from the software processing side. Not a strong point of this phone, but you could probably rig it with some apps, or if you want to use Lightroom or Moment or whatever to shoot raw photos, you can do whatever you want with it. And then it also shoots 8K 30 FPS video, which I was on board saying, stupid, dumb, waste of time, waste of space, pointless. I will say, I've used this. I have been looking for the right phone camera that I can use indoors, not in bright sunny light, for occasional B-roll shots when I just need to hold a phone up and shoot video, and I've struggled with every single phone because the video gets so dang noisy. I have used the 8K video out of this for B-roll in some shots, and a lot of people would never know that it was a phone camera. And while the shot can be pretty noisy, because of the resolution, the noise is actually so fine that it's barely noticeable, especially after ran through YouTube compression or some denoising, that the video I get out of this is actually pretty impressive. You're still working with the smartphone camera, it still has that kind of flat depth to it, but I'm gonna be using it because it actually wasn't terrible. Sound on this is actually phenomenal. They do have a virtual surround sound thing, which is whatever, but the actual speakers on it are pretty impressive. They're not as great as if they were dual front-facing speakers, but I like it, and the fact that they include a decent headphone jack with the proper DAC and stuff on it is also great as well. Huge kudos for that. Now, I mentioned a few times the screen runs at 144 Hz. It is smooth, it is beautiful. I never want to use a low refresh rate screen again if I don't have to. I say staring at a 60 Hz monitor right here. It's great, but again, very few games let you completely unlock the frame rate past 60 FPS. Most cap out at 90 FPS. If they do let you do that, I would wager a confident guess that there's 1 or 2 games that would actually ever run at 144 Hz, and that's it. And oddly, when I was looking up high refresh rate games for my last phone review, one of the ones that ran at like 100 or whatever was like a fighting game, which was kind of silly. But most of them aren't running at that. It also has a 240 hertz touch sampling rate, which makes it more accurate, but overall doesn't really mean anything to you. My last major complaint here has to do with the in-screen fingerprint reader. Naturally, it just unlocked first try there. Well, my complaint was going to be that it rarely works for me. Yeah, you can see here now. That time it worked. This was the same issue I had with the fingerprint reader on the Red Magic Mars, even though that was on the back of it. I always have trouble getting Red Magic's fingerprint readers to work for me. I've trained it and retrained it, and it just takes either a bunch of times most of the time, or it just never unlocks, and I find it faster to type in my PIN. Obviously, lesser known phones have lesser quality fingerprint sensors and stuff, but it was pretty disappointing because finger unlock on most phones these days is so instantaneous that it is my favorite way to use it, next to the face unlock on the Asus ROG phone. That was pretty phenomenal. So what's the verdict for content creation, gaming, things like that? If you're just looking to game, buy a case for this. You're gonna have a just phenomenal and fairly future-proof experience here, and I can absolutely say it's out of the park, and I will continue to enjoy playing Call of Duty Mobile and the like on it. If you are looking for something that also is great for streaming via HDMI out or internally screen recording really high quality, honestly, I do think the Asus ROG Phone 2 with their dock is a better choice at this point in time. And that's pretty frustrating because I had some other hangups with that phone, but ultimately that's what it comes down to. You do need a case. It is incredibly slippery. The triggers and the screen are phenomenal, and it's a great gaming experience with a lot of performance overhead for screen recording and things like that. I do wish they would update their app to support HEVC and to support full resolution and frame rate recording, and this would be a much bigger recommendation for me. I'd also love to see an audio mixer implemented so I can use both the internal microphone and the system game sound while recording. This has been my video on the Red Magic 5G gaming smartphone for streamers. Let me know what you think about it in the comment section down below. Would you see yourself streaming from a phone anytime soon? I'm Fox, your stream professor. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe for more gaming content and stream education. Go check us out on Floatplane, early access to videos, behind the scenes content. Go check us out on Discord, eposfox.gg/discord for so much awesome stuff. Getting your tech help, talking about tech topics, learning about streaming, all of that jazz. I'll see you next time.